Today I'm going to talk to you about staying safe whilst at work. What I'll explain is general guidance. So if you've been given specific guidance from your employer, manager or supervisor in regards to your work, then please follow that guidance. So we're going to look at the following, and we're going to help you consider staying safe while preparing for work, when travelling to work and whilst you're at work. And we'll take a closer look at the personal protective equipment and of course washing your hands. So let's begin by getting a basic overview of the science. The statistics around infections and fatalities connected with COVID-19 indicate that if you're fit and healthy and not on any medication, you don't have any underlying health issues. And if you're below the age of 60 and you work outdoors, you are at lower risk of contracting COVID-19. One of the most important aspects of keeping yourself, your family and your fellow workers safe is to be rigorous and repetitive with your hand washing. This, above all other actions, has been suggested as the most effective way of stopping transmission of the virus. You must also try to avoid touching your face, something the average person does 20 times an hour. Hand washing has to be done in a very thorough manner. A quick swill under the tap won't achieve the objective, which is to ensure any virus is removed from your hands. Let's have a look at a short video provided by the NHS on how to do it properly. And let's not forget social distancing, a thing we are now all familiar with. It is still good practice to maintain a 2-metre distance between you and another person, wherever and whenever possible. Government advice says you should only go to work if you physically can't do your work from home. If you're a site worker, then working from home won't be possible. However, you still have a choice. Firstly, before you set out, make sure that you're feeling well. Ensure that your temperature is normal, you don't have a persistent cough, and that your sense and taste and smell is just as it should be. If any of these things don't feel right, then avoid physical contact with others and let your employee know straight away that you may have COVID-19 symptoms. Then follow current government advice on self-isolation and testing. If you are classed as clinically vulnerable but are able to return to work, make sure your supervisor knows your condition so that extra measures can be put into place to ensure you're safe working. If you're clinically extremely vulnerable, i.e. high risk, you should be shielded already and will not be able to work. Read through the next 2 slides to see if you fall into these categories. If you do have periods of not being able to work, then before you return, make sure you've spoken to your manager or supervisor and that you both know what to expect when returning to work. If you're not happy to return, then say why. Maybe your concerns can be addressed. Even if you've left home feeling fine but feel ill before entering work, then don't go in. If you feel good, then make sure the last job you do before leaving is washing your hands. We also advise that you take your own lunch and drinks with you. Working on site means we all have to get there, and that is usually by vehicle. If at all possible, try not to travel on public transport. But if you have no option, then try to adapt social distancing measures and avoid touching any surfaces. Wash your hands, or if impractical, use hand sanitizer before and after travelling. If you have to travel with other people and can't achieve a 2 metre social distance, then wear a face covering. If travelling by car sharing or minibus, then try to follow these layouts. When you're at work, sites will have a specific way of safely operating, but here are some basic things to remember. Wash your hands or sanitize them before entering the premises. If you're changing into specific work gear, make sure you put your own clothes into the dedicated clean locker. And when finished, place your work clothes into the locker that is dedicated for dirty items. Always try and get your work clothes washed as regular as possible. Before carrying out any task, check that you and your supervisor or manager have discussed how it should be done to ensure that you all conform to the latest guidance. Think about how the task can be done fully complying with social distancing measures. This will form part of any risk assessment that you'll be briefed upon by your supervisor. If working with machinery, portable or fixed, ensure all contact surfaces are clean before use, and then clean again after you've finished using them. If you have to share machines or tools, try to share with the same person each time, but still clean after your personal use. If working in the open and you are more than 2 meters away from someone else, then no COVID-19 related PPE is required. If working outside and you are within 2 meters of someone else, it's good practice to wear a cloth or a cotton face protector or higher grade face mask for the duration. If working on your own in a confined space, follow the usual procedures for lone working. If working with others in a confined space and the 2 meter distance cannot be observed, if at all possible, wear a cotton or a cloth face covering, or if this is not available, wear an FRSM. A basic mask or face covering is usually made from cloth or cotton. It mainly protects others from being contaminated by you rather than you being protected. You will still need to use the appropriate PPE if your task demands it. For example, cutting or drilling concrete, sanding, welding, or working in a confined space. As always, wash or sanitize your hands before and after the use of the welfare facilities. Hopefully, you remember to take your own food and drinks so that you can be self-sufficient. But if you have to share cups, mugs, or utensils, then please make sure they are washed with soapy water after use. Wipe down with a proprietary cleaner anything that other people may touch after you leave, such as fridge handles, kettles, or a worktop. And always make sure you observe all social distancing guidelines. They're even more important when indoors. Try not to change rotas if at all possible. It's always best to stay with the same group of workers if you can. This way you limit the number of people, both inside and outside of work, that you come into contact with. Sometimes your job might mean you have to stay away from home. Here are some things you should try and make sure are covered. The room you are staying in is self-contained. The communal areas are cleaned properly and regularly. If not, speak to your manager or supervisor. So the working day has come to an end and it's time to head home or back to your digs, but before leaving work, make sure your PPE is properly disposed of. You might be able to reuse it following washing, so check if this is possible before it goes in the bin. And at the risk of sounding boring, wash or sanitize your hands before you leave the site. When you get home or back to your accommodation, wash your hands before heading for a shower and a change of clothes. It is vitally important that everyone takes responsibility for their own health, safety and well-being. We all have a legal and moral duty to look after ourselves, our fellow workers, our friends and families.